Chapter 5 deals with the military aspects of the American Civil War and the French intervention. Because for Latinos here in California, actually what we had was one war, not two, one war with two fronts. There was a front on the east against the Confederacy and a front on the south against the French. Both fronts were defenses of freedom and democracy. And in this chapter, I use in particular the two sons of Mariano Vallejo. General Mariano Vallejo had been the commander of the Mexican forces here in California while it was part of Mexico. He had many sons, but one son, Platon Vallejo, was actually the first Latino U.S. medical graduate, the first Latino born here who went to medical school, not in Mexico, but he went to Columbia University in New York. And while he was at Columbia University, the Civil War broke out, and he served as a surgeon for the Union forces. And he was present at the Second Battle of Bull Run, and he helped take care of the carnage, the dreadful carnage amongst the Union forces. And when he came back to California, the Civil War is still on, he commissioned as a naval surgeon, and he was stationed at Mare Island. His brother, Mariano Vallejo's other son, Uladislao, went south, and he joined the Mexican Army. He was a captain in the Mexican Army. In fact, he went down twice. He went first, and he was involved in the Battle of Mazatlan. He was actually wounded by the French. He had to come back to Sonoma, to California, recuperate. As soon as he recuperated, bam, he was back in Mexico again, and he was a captain of the Mexican Army until 1870. Mariano Vallejo was happy. My sons are defending freedom and democracy, one against the Confederacy in the east, the other against the French in the south. This is one war with three fronts. Well, I just said two, right? There was a third front. Here in California, you have the Copperheads. You had a lot of sympathizers with the Confederacy, the ones that supported slavery, and they were always trying for insurrection. So actually Latinos here in California, besides being in the military, in the cavalry, in the infantry, and in the Navy, we also had militia, Latino militia. In San Francisco, the Latino militia actually were an artillery unit. In New Almaden, south of San Jose, and in Sonora, they were infantry units. And in Marysville, the Latino militia were lancers, lanceros mexicanos. They were mounted cavalry. This is in addition to the four battalions of Spanish-speaking Native California cavalry and the Latino members of all the other armed forces. Remember, the Confederacy reached all the way through Arizona to the Colorado River. That was Confederate territory. It was responsibility of the California column and the Latinos within it to push the Confederates back into Texas and to keep the Confederates from linking up with the French coming up through Sonora. And we have some interesting examples of Captain Jose Ramon Pico, who was with the Native California Cavalry, speaking Spanish, representing the United States, having to go into Mexico and deal with the French there in Mexico, trying to get some deserters back. So here we have a Spanish speaker representing the United States and freedom and democracy, and a French speaker representing Mexico and the empire and slavery and oligarchy. Fascinating. But in the end, the Union Army finally prevailed over the Confederacy. Freedom and democracy won in the East, and in the end, in 1867, the Army of Freedom and Democracy won over the Empire. Maximilian was taken prisoner at the Siege of Querétaro. He was tried, sentenced, and executed, and finally, freedom and democracy came to be the political characteristics of the North American landmass. We were at peace, and Latinos were proud they had served both of their countries, the United States and Mexico, from California, with great distinction and honor.